Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar on the SmartSights release of Win911 2024 R2 and XLReporter 16.1. Today's agenda, just to kind of give a reminder to people in the audience who may not be familiar, we'll talk about SmartSights core capabilities. We'll talk about our enhancements to our reporting and notification integration in our latest release. We'll do a brief hands-on demonstration of this new functionality. We'll talk about some enhancements individually to our Win911 and XLReporter products, and then we'll take some time towards the end just to address any questions that have come in from the audience throughout the presentation. And on that note, if anyone does have any questions throughout the presentation, just use the question and answer menu inside of the GoToWebinar control interface. Just to introduce myself, my name is David Nolan. I am the Senior SmartSights Application Engineer, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Stephen Rivas, who is the Product Manager of Win911. So just to get started, we'll kind of refresh the audience on what SmartSights does in terms of our core capabilities, which are sort of categorized in two different areas. The first is our Win911 product, which is industrial alarm notification software. And it works by monitoring an in-plant data source like a SCADA or HMI or a PLC. And it takes the alarms and events that are sort of being pushed out of that system, and it intelligently routes them to different process stakeholders through different methods at different points in time. And the way it does this is by being aware of the people in your organization, their roles, their work schedules, their relationship to each other. So it knows who to notify at what time and knows how to escalate alarms if people don't answer. And it knows what methods by which people are reachable, whether that be our app, a text message, email, or voice. Our other core area of capability is automated process reporting. And in different industries, we find that reporting, it can mean very different things. But in general, in automated industrial processes, people are generating process reports to comply with government regulations, to get a better understanding and visibility into their operations, and as well as for internal compliance and auditing around things like safety and quality control. And some examples of where this solution gets used, right, is in water treatment. There are state level environmental regulatory reports that get produced. Wastewater is quite similar. In manufacturing, maybe reports are kind of more operational in nature. Food and beverage also has regulatory compliance with the FDA in terms of process safety. And we won't go over all these examples in detail, but it's a very flexible solution that basically can be implemented in any type of industry against any kind of industrial data system. And so why would people choose SmartSights, right? There's tons of different industrial software out there that's playing in this space in terms of real-time alerts and process data and analysis. Well, SmartSights has built up some strong technology partnerships over decades of effort with the world's leading HMI, SCADA, DCS software vendors. We have long-standing partnerships with companies like Aviva, Schneider, GE, Rockwell, and Emerson. And while we're highlighting these here on this slide, our connectivity to industrial data systems extends much farther beyond just this set as well. So now we'll talk a bit about how our solutions work, right? Just going back to the core capabilities with respect to notifications and reports. So the idea behind industrial alarm notifications is to notify the right people at the right time that a process deviation or an abnormal condition has happened. We do that again by monitoring the faucet or the fire hose of alarms that are coming out of an implant system. That could be a proprietary system like an Aviva InTouch or system platform, or a Rockwell or a GE system, or it could be a standard data interface. And the engineers in the audience will recognize this alphabet soup of all the different OPC technology that we support. But these represent standard interfaces that allow us to connect to any system, outside of the proprietary connections that the product supports. But the idea is that once you're monitoring this feed of the in-plant alarm system, you're going to route the alarms right to the right people at the right time. And this can be done by something simple like a call out list, right? If we give Bob a phone call and he doesn't answer within 5 minutes, then we'll escalate it to Bill so he can answer it. We can also use advanced, branching logic to target alarms based on what area of the process they're happening and what severity level they're occurring at. The idea here is obviously that we're taking this sort of blasted information and we're targeting it to the people that are best able to respond to it. And of course, when we're delivering notifications, we need to do it. We need to have a method of delivering the notification to somebody, so we can do it by a voice call, either by plain old telephone or VoIP, email, SMS, or by our mobile app, which you see pictured to the right over here. And all these interfaces support acknowledgement. They also support requests for reports and data. So you can ask for a report over the phone and you can get a readout of some process values. You can respond to that SMS message and get sort of a textual representation of that. But by email and mobile, we do have some advanced reporting that includes analysis, visualization, graphs, charts that's powered by our smart bundle. In terms of reporting, the workflow is very similar. We connect to in-plant data sources, right? We support all the major vendors as well as data standards like OPC and OLEDB. We've got dozens of out-of-box layouts that you can use, or you can design or configure templates using an Excel add-in or a standalone environment. The product does not require Excel. It's just an optional design environment that's there for people who are Excel power users. And what these report templates do is they interface with the process data and they turn the raw data being logged by your SCADA, your historian, your DCS into actionable metrics, right? Looking at analog data and giving you min, max, average, total, standard statistical functions, as well as some industrial focused ones, uptime, downtime, state durations, and so on. With these report templates, we can generate reports on time or on event. So think of generating a report at the end of the shift or end of the day, or reacting to a batch starting or stopping, or an alarm occurring. We also support on-demand ad hoc reporting by a browser client, a thick desktop client, or through our mobile app as well. And the software can also act in sort of a passive mode where it just delivers reports in standard file formats, either locally or by email. We're talking workbook files, PDF, HTML, and so on. And it can also act as middleware between an industrial data source or industrial data system and a business system. So it can crunch out some process metrics, export those to relational databases, or expose them to a REST API. So these higher level data systems can make use of the data that our product is producing. And so I guess in our previous release, which was Win 911 2024 in XLReporter 16, we did introduce a smart bundle. We're enhancing that smart bundle now in this new release we're talking about today, 2024 R2 and 16.1. But sort of the core question that has to be asked with this is what are the benefits of bundling reports and notifications in general? Right? We can think of something like a water plant where maybe they're trying to achieve unmanned overnight shifts and they need remote notifications so people can answer alarms in the middle of the night. That's an obvious capability. Water plants are also producing EPA compliance reports. That's another obvious capability why something like a water plant would need reports and notifications. But there are also some unique capabilities that get enabled with our smart bundle that extend just beyond having reports and having notifications separately. So we'll kind of go over the idea or the concept behind the smart bundle, and that's that you have one facility or one industrial process, but you have different people that need to consume different data to help them do their job, right? They need to consume different data at different times in different ways, but it may all be relative to the same operation or the same facility. And so the idea here is that with the bundle, we're providing people like maintenance techs and operators with mobile alerts so they can know when process deviations or abnormal conditions are happening, but they can also see the information driving those abnormalities. They can understand not only that a problem has happened, but the context, right, that it's happening in inside of the plant, and also some net effects that it's having on the production, for example, say in a food and beverage operation where this example is coming from. Now, within that same food and beverage process, you might have people like quality control engineers, or you might have external audits by regulatory agencies, and people that are viewing the process in this light, they need to see a different perspective that includes, every detailed occurrence or incident that's happened within that process. And so they're seeing a detailed report that's not only including the high level metrics we saw on mobile, but it's including a history of all the instrumentation in a tabular format. It's including all the alarm and event data that's happened in the process, all of the operator actions in terms of changing set points. And so if there is a quality or regulatory audit, they're able to unturn sort of, at a very, very granular level of detail what's happened, say, inside of that process. Now, the bundle also enables a third perspective, a high-level summary perspective that would be used by system administrators, right, of the SCADA or of the SmartSights deployment, by production supervisors, and that's available in our control center. And it includes dashboards that have a live feed of the alarms, right? And so now we're not talking about, if we go all the way back to mobile, right, a tech receiving a singular alarm and responding to it, or an auditor, looking at this detailed view of the process. We're seeing a supervisory level view of, all the number of alarms that are going out to our different people, what the state of those alarms are. Have they been acknowledged or not? And we're also seeing a high-level summary of that process, right? We may not need to know every single detail of what's happening inside of it, but we may need to know a red, yellow, green light, threshold analysis of how that process is doing. And of course, this client also lets you drill down from these data widgets back into that detailed report as well. So the idea is that we're sort of bringing the big picture of everything that's happening in the plant into focus and presenting it in the right way to the different critical roles that are involved with that process. So some of the concepts that sit behind this, right, enabling these different perspectives, are the concept of relating alarms to process data. And we're sort of looking at a data-focused view of this in this screenshot. But we have built-in templates, right, that are designed to enhance alarm response. And those templates are basically asking the question, what information would someone want to know when they're responding to an alarm? And so if it's an alarm that's happening on a particular asset, like a mixer or a reactor, the person responding to it may want to know beyond just that the level of the tank is high. They'll want to know the history leading up to when that's happening, so they can see things like flow rates and pressures and other temperatures and other zones of the asset, so they can get an understanding of what's happened to cause that alarm and how they can respond to it. And beyond these built-in templates, we also have configurability right around this. So really, this is more of a mentality or a state of mind in terms of how you're relating process data to alarms. So you can design incident reports, right? The lead up trend we just looked at being one example of that. You can design dashboards that just summarize what's happening in the process, or maybe in the building energy system, or something that's sort of tangentially related to the overall health of the alarm system. And you can also design discrete event reports, right, that sort of monitor something like a production cycle or a batch that are exposing all the data points that are happening in that process to people, exposing the alarms that are happening in that process, and collating all this information, the process data, people's responses and comments and acknowledgments to alarms, right, all get tracked within this discrete audit kind of a report. So these are kind of three different relationships that process data has to alarms, right? What's happening leading up to the alarm for a responder? How is the overall activity of the alarm system affecting the process? And how can we take an audit of the process, of the alarms, and of people's response to them? Now, one simple use case or one simple relationship, right, is just an on-demand dashboard. We can talk about all these high concepts of relating data and solving alarms, but one simple thing that has to be said is that you can use this tool simply to expose on-demand dashboards, right, to mobile app users. And the way this works is that the relationship between our notification tool and our reporting tool is that you can tell the notification system that, hey, you've got a reporting server installed. Here's where it is. And then you can select available reports from a list and add them into this Win911 workspace. And then anybody that's got the mobile app installed can go and access those dashboards. So very simple, but very effective use case. Again, going back to adding context notifications, right? We looked at something like when an alarm happens, what process data will help people resolve it. This is the notification side of that, right? So now we want to know what conditions, right? What alarm conditions that are happening do we want to use and send a report? So we have a sort of a flowchart workflow type of builder, right? That can define the response workflow to an alarm. So we can check things like when the alarm is happening, what area the process is happening in, and use that criteria to determine what report we're going to send, when we're going to send it, who we're going to send it to, and how we're going to do it, either by email or through our mobile app. So I think I'm going backwards here. Sorry about this, folks. And so what does this look like in terms of what an end user would actually see and experience using the app? And so if they're using Win911 Mobile, and we're using the SmartSights bundle, not only do we see notifications that alarms are happening, get those pushed to us, we can access either on demand or with notification, right, the different reports that we've exposed to the user. So they can check on things, again, like what's happening inside of the discrete process. They can see how these alarms might be affecting the building energy system. They can see the results of a process, right? Did we pass or did we fail? What are the concerning areas? And they can even check on the health of the alarm system itself and see if there are problems within that. Are we getting alarm floods? Are there chattering or stale alarms? And so these are all sort of enhancements, right, to the fundamental functions of this app, right, which is receiving alarm notifications. Now we can use this to also get a better understanding of not only how to respond to the notifications, but just get a better understanding of the process itself. In terms of the high-level control room summary, right? Recall that we looked at that control center dashboard, right? Had that widgetized view of that detail report, and this is actually an out-of-box example. So this report can be delivered without any custom configuration. But the way the configurability works of this is you would design a detailed layout of report, and you simply drag and you highlight over areas that you want to expose as widgets inside that control center, and then they just become available from a selectable drop-down list. So you can arrange elements of different processes and different reports into a supervisory level view. And we'll take a look at how this actually works in action in a moment. I'll admit it's a lot simpler than I'm probably describing it right now. Again, this is just the end result of that, right? We've selected what areas we want to convert into data widgets, and then we can arrange and build a dashboard around those key pieces of information that we've highlighted. The benefits for existing users, right? So we're looking at the Smart Bundle. We know that people in the audience here, they may have historically been users of Win911 or XLReporter, and everything we've kind of talked about to this point, right, have been benefits either for a new user or someone who's familiar with Win911, right? They're getting enhanced notifications with this bundle. They're getting not only a indication of what happened and when in terms of alarms, but how it could have happened and why. And this understanding is being powered, right, by access to historical data, by enhanced visualization, by the ability to calculate process metrics and analyze their process data. XLReporter users implementing the bundle, right? They're getting real-time notifications, but they're also getting the ability to access ad hoc reports from anywhere in the world using the Win911 mobile app. And so altogether, bringing these two things together is trying to deliver a single solution for process monitoring, analysis, compliance, getting all these things in one place from one vendor and one product. In terms of prerequisites, this may be a bit technical for this discussion, but just to kind of go over, what is sort of being installed in the Smart Bundle. It's Win911 2024 R2 with an email or mobile gateway and the reporting module installed. It's XLReporter 16.1 being installed in distributed mode, and these can be installed on the same system, or they can be installed on different nodes in the network. And for Win911 users, you can kind of think of almost like XLReporter being an additional Win911 module that you're including in your deployment. One use case also that gets enabled by the Smart Bundle, right, is sort of a bringing alarm management to the masses, right? Some people in the audience may be familiar with the concept of alarm rationalization and alarm management, and this certainly won't be, an in-depth lecture on that, but just to kind of highlight what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the concept of designing an alarm system and implementing it so it can achieve its goal, right, of improving efficiency and safety in the process and in the plant. And that often requires, a rationalization, right, of the conditions, an understanding of why we need alarms in a process, identifying the conditions in the control system that are going to indicate those alarms, defining how they're going to be expressed, right, to an operator and what their response is going to be. Uh, Once all these things have sort of been laid out, right, the plant is going to operate the system, they're going to run it, people are going to receive alarms, respond to them, and try to resolve conditions in the process. But oftentimes there are, commonplace problems with these implementations, especially in larger alarm systems like you find in chemical or oil or in gas. People can be overwhelmed by alarm floods. There could be poorly defined conditions. Operators don't know how to respond to them. In the worst cases, they could be suppressing the system altogether because it's not actually helpful to them. And so what alarm management is sort of a standardized framework that allows you to assess how well your alarm system is actually performing. You can root out commonplace problems for you. It can advise you where to change it so you can improve the system continuously so that, again, it gets back to its goal of achieving efficiency and safety. And Win911 or alarm notifications are sort of part of the implementation of alarms, right? Because mobile notifications are one way you can deliver an alarm to someone. And then our reporting tool sort of serves the monitoring and assessment piece of this, and that it can actually detect if these kind of problems are happening and make, it advise you on how you can make some improvements. And so the Smart Bundle gets involved as sort of part of the alarm system itself and its monitoring and assessment. We see this in the product, right? One of the capabilities we have in the control center is the ability to uh, you know, express some of these ISA concepts, to people in real time, bad actors, chattering, stale alarms. Uh, and we have long-term reporting that sort of looks at this from a more in-depth perspective in terms of calculating these metrics, storing them historically, assessing where problems are and where improvements need to be made, and also assessing progress, right, on actually making those improvements and improving the alarm system. So now we'll kind of take a different direction here. We'll go into some hands-on, and we'll take a look at some of the new features that are enabled with the Smart Bundle and Win911 2024 R2, XLReporter 16.1, and that is our enhanced dashboards that include data widgets, right, that are powered by our reporting tool. And so what we're looking at here is the Win911 Control Center. Right, this is a tool that lets you view and acknowledge live alarms in the system. It lets you view historical logs, right, of what's happened in the past in terms of what notifications have gone out. But as of Win911 2024 and XLReporter 16, this tool also included dashboards, so we could see, what's happening in the alarm system at a summary level. In 24R2 and 16.1, it also includes data widgets, right? So these are widgets telling us what's happening in the process. So we can use this to look at something like discrete processes that are happening, right? We can look at 3 different assets that are running inside the plant. We can see what they're doing right now, what the net result is, and we can see some key relationships and trends, right, in the process running on that asset. We can see, general continuous information, right? Like things like OEE, right? How effectively has the process been running over the past 24 hours or during the shift? In something like a water treatment plant, right? We can use this tool to look at, say, some metrics around the levels of EPA regulated chemicals, right, that are being monitored in the process. And obviously, these are sort of 3 different industrial scenarios I've kind of just thrown out here at the audience. But the idea here is right now we're using the control center for something beyond, just acknowledging alarms and looking at historical logs. It becomes a way to monitor process data. right? And this thing isn't a say a replacement to HMI or SCADA, right? It's not real-time display of motion control and things like that, but it allows people, say in a water plant, right, to get an assessment of this critical process data and put this thing up on screens where HMI displays, right, can't go either due to budgetary or technical limitations. Uh, and so this is really what what it's all about and what the user experience is in terms of these data widgets. Now we'll kind of take a moment to just sort of look at how these things are actually put together and constructed. And so underlying all of these widgets, we have a reporting application, right? So I'm going to transition to the XLReporter Project Explorer here, and we'll take a look at some of the reports, right, that are underlying all those widgets that we just looked at. So we have the concept of the discrete process report, right? This is the detailed view that we were talking about in the slides a few moments ago. We have the concept of using process data like production totals and uptime and ideal set points, right, to determine things like OEE, how effectively is the process performing on these different assets, right? So we can see this sort of individually inside this reporting client for each of these different assets. We can look at, if we want to look at the water treatment examples that we looked at, right? We can look at things like the chemical levels in the process, some analysis of chlorine sampling, right, over time. What are our chlorine levels at different points in time in the process? And so all these things are sort of designed as report templates. And we've got tons of out-of-box layouts that are designed specifically to work with this widget feature inside the control center. And I won't go through setting one of these up in its entirety, but just to kind of give the audience an understanding of how it works, right? We've got a template library wizard that lets you construct reports from pre-built layouts. We've got a whole category of, we call them report snippets, that are going to go inside of these widgets in the control center, right? So we've got things like equipment usage, the OEE dashboard we looked at, the chemical analysis, and the discrete process. So everything that I've shown you in my example in the control center is actually constructed from pre-built templates. And we've got general purpose things, right, like column charts and line charts and things like that. And so we would define a template that accesses data, say from our process historian, right, to fuel what's going on inside of that report. And once we build that, then we can access it as a widget here inside the control center. So for example, if I wanted to add a widget into this, I can go into edit mode here in the control center. I can select that I want to put in an XLReporter snippet in here, and then I can configure that. So I can say, all right, I want this snippet to be 2 by 2 in terms of the size of the tiles on the grid. I want to call this CL2 plot, for example. I want to refresh that widget every minute automatically when that dashboard is running. And I want to power it by my chlorine sampling template. And I want to use this particular tag set for this particular chlorine level. And I'll click save. And now this widget gets added into my dashboard, and it will refresh automatically alongside all of my alarm information here. And now we can just flip back briefly to one of these other dashboards here, and you can see, right, that this dashboard is just a collection of widgets, right, that are powered by those reports. So it's very easy to connect this up, right? You basically tell the reporting tool what your data source is. You plug it into one of those pre-built layouts, say if you've got tags that indicate these chemical levels, and then you can access and arrange and tile all that information here inside the control center client. And these, some of these widgets, right, they tie, or these reports, right, they not only tie into the control center, but they can also tie into the mobile app as well. And so when you create these templates, right, they can also be used inside of the mobile app. And that just works by connecting up in the Win911 workspace here, connecting up, right, these reports, which is the list that you'll end up being able to use inside the mobile app. And it works very similar to widgets, right? We just select the report we want to see in mobile from a tabular list. And then if I move my mobile app screen onto the display here, right? This is my iPad we're looking at now. We can see on the left-hand side, there's a list of all the reports that we just saw in the workspace. So I can see, you know, alongside all of my live alarm information that I'm using the app for, I can also access reports, and they can be the same reports that we're looking at, both inside of XLReporter's native client, inside the control center as a widget, or here in the mobile app as a report. So this ties back right to our concept in the bundle of delivering, you know, different perspectives to different people at different times. We're basically making that very, very easy to do by defining the kind of information you want to relay a single time, right? I want to relay OE information. I want to relay discrete process trends. I want to relay, you know, the trend of data leading up to an alarm. And then I can express that, right, very easily as a widgetized dashboard, as a mobile app notification, as a dashboard here in my iPad, for example. So very easy to define that information once and expose it in all these different layers of the software. So I'm going to transition back to a slide segment here. Definitely happy to answer any questions on the widgets, you know, as we reach the end of the presentation. But now, as part of this being a release webinar, we're just going to transition and kind of finish off on just some enhancements to the individual products, XLReporter and Win911 as well. So what we've been talking about to this point has sort of been the Smart Bundle, but as part of these releases, we do have some enhancements to XLReporter and Win911 specifically. And so XLReporter in version 16.1. Don't worry, we're not going to talk about alarm management again for for 5 minutes, but we did add the ability. So if people have used XLReporter before for IS 18.2 reports, that required a connection to a SCADA-based alarm system, right? Connecting into a database that comes from Factory Talk or from GE or from Aviva. We can now do the IS 18.2 analysis directly from Win911's historical log database. And the benefit of this for users is that we can do that kind of alarm management analysis for people that are just connecting Win911 to an OPC server, right? They don't need to have a dedicated HMI alarm and event system to produce this kind of monitoring and assessment analysis. It also allows people to produce that analysis from multiple data sources at the same time. And these would be Win911 users that have multiple nodes defined. So these would be people that have a connection to an OPC server, for example, and an Aviva system platform or a Factory Talk alarm and event. Win911 normalizes all that alarm data in its historical logs, and then we can layer the ISA analysis on top of it. We've also introduced in 16.1 a modular web server. So this allows sort of a front and a back end split in XLReporter's web services. So with this, we can have, you know, the concept of a process network and a business network, or a process network and a DMZ, for example. And these things are isolated by a firewall. Obviously, we don't want to allow open traffic between these networks, but we want to allow people on the business network, right, to be able to access process reports and dashboards. So in this implementation, we would have the XLReporter server, the back end installed on the process network. It'd be connecting into its data sources, HMI, SCADA, DCS. And then we'd have the XLReporter front-end web server installed right on the adjacent layer here in the DMZ or in the business network. And that allows reporting clients, right, to access all the reports and dashboards you have set up in XLReporter without having them have to touch, right, the process network directly. Now, I think I'll finally end my ranting and raving here, and I'll pass the mic over to Mr. Rivas, and he's going to take the audience through some enhancements in Win911 2024 R2.
All right, thanks, David. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Then I will just switch over to my screen here. All right, there we go. All right, thanks again, David. And I just want to remind you guys, if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, we've only got a few more slides to go. and then we'll let you guys go. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the questions portion of GoToWebinar, and we can get to them at the end. All right, so what David's been showing you is a lot of the integration pieces between XLReporter and Win911. But like he said, and he just showed you, we did make some changes specifically to XLReporter and Win911. And for Win911, a majority of the changes that we made are for the voice module, and that's what I want to talk about with you guys now. The first change that we made is that we've added speech recognition to that voice module to try and provide a safer hands-free experience. It's a pretty simple interaction between yourself and the phone. Um, the same functionalities there for delivering alarms and reports, but what we've done is we've added speech recognition for things like your authorization code. So now, if you're in the car and you answer the call, it'll ask you for your authorization code. You can speak that authorization code back to Win911. It will recognize that, and then we'll go through and read you the alarms, or you can request reports, things like that. And when you want to acknowledge an alarm, it'll prompt you to tell it whether you want to acknowledge the alarm. And you can say act, you can say acknowledge, or if you've used the voice module before, you hit the number 2 to acknowledge if you're using the keypad, but you can say the number 2 as well. And that will pass back on through to Win911 and acknowledge the alarm. So this is something that you can enable in your Win911 system. It's available in the 2024 R2 release that we're talking about. And as soon as you upgrade, you'll be able to take advantage of that. You don't have to there's no hardware changes or anything like that required. It'll work with your existing system once you upgrade. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the shared phone voice contact. So we've had this special use case for years, and we've never really done anything about it. And we wanted to do something about it for this release. So what this will allow you to do is, if you have an on-call phone and you pass that around at the plant, some of our customers have told us they want to be able to track who actually acknowledged the alarm, and we haven't been able to do that before because one phone is associated one authorization code. So if you hand it to Adam, in the past, if you hand it to Adam and he tried to acknowledge it, it will always say just the on-call phone active. You won't know that it was actually Adam that did that. So we added a new contact option that realize I've got a typo in the title there, shared phone voice contact. We've added this new shared contact into it that will allow you to specify a phone number, and then along with that phone number, specify the different authorization codes that have access to it, so you can put in those individual users. So you only have to put this entry in your call out list one time. So whereas before you'd have to put, if you did have Adam, Bob, and Charles defined, you'd have to put all 3 of them in there. For this, you just put the on-call phone in, and any one of those can access it when it calls them, and you'll know who it was that actually accessed the system and acknowledged the alarm. So that is another new feature that we added. We also added a voice say as feature. If you're familiar with the announcer tool that is available with Win911, then this will look familiar to you. The purpose of this is to aid the text-to-speech engine to pronounce words correctly. So every now and then you'll have something in your alarm description that is an acronym or something a text-to-speech engine won't pronounce correctly. Well, what this allows you to do is on the say side of the grid that you see there, you put what you're looking for to convert. So in the case of ALM, well, the text-to-speech engine will say ALM normally. Well, with this tool, you can put say ALM as alarm. So you find those acronyms, you find those words that are in your alarm names or descriptions, and then you can use this tool to alter how it goes to the text-to-speech engine. And you can use this, you can test it out in the workspace tool. You can also, if you are using this already with the announcer application, you can export the definitions you have in that announcer tool and import them into the voice module, and vice versa. So if you do all the work in the voice module, you can export it over to the announcer as well. So that's the voice say as option. I've got one more voice thing that we changed, and that is we call it multi-act is what we're calling it. So I don't have any pictures to show you for this, but what this is we've with our old version of Win911 that a lot of you guys know is version 7 or version 7 Pro or whatever you referred to it as. So the acknowledgement method was a little bit different than the current Win911. So the current Win911 option, when it calls you, it will tell you, it'll read you out an alarm, the alarm information, and then it will ask you if you want to acknowledge it. So if you've got a long list of alarms that you have to go one by one by one. And we made that change a long time ago because there were some problems with the version 7 way of doing it where people weren't hearing all the alarms and then they were only acknowledging half of them and so on. But a lot of people like that functionality, so we've added it back. It's a new option, so if you like the new way that we've been doing it, you can keep that. You can keep doing it that way. If you want to switch over to the old, to this, well, it's a new style, but where what it will do now is it will read you all the alarms that are active at that or unacknowledged at that particular moment, and it will let you acknowledge them all at the end rather than having to take an action before right after each alarm. So that is something else that just be available. You have to enable this feature, so you get to choose which act model you want to, to use for your operators. So that's what we've done for the voice module. We've also made some changes to the control center. That was the tool that David was showing you with all those reports in it, or Excel reporter snippets. So one of the changes that we made is support for failover systems. In our last release, we've added a failover module or a failover utility. And what that utility does is it automates the failover of one system to another. But the problem with that, with the control center, was that if you had your control center looking at both of those systems at the same time, you would see duplicate alarms within within control center on the live monitor view. So we've added this option where you can pair two Win911 systems together. So you have a primary system and you have a secondary system. Well, you tell Control Center that these are primary, these are a pair. And when you do that, it'll only show you the active systems alarms within the live monitor view. And there's an option to disable that if you did want to see both of them at the same time. You can still do that, but I'm not sure why you would want to do that unless you're doing some troubleshooting and at the initial setup of your system. But during normal runtime, you're only going to want to see the alarms from one system. So that is a functionality we added to the control center with this release. And one last thing with the control center, another version 7, the old legacy application feature we added in is this pop-up on alarm feature. So if you want Win911 or the control center to pop up on your screen whenever a new alarm comes in, we added this option for pop-up on alarm when any change occurs. That means an alarm can go from active to inactive, or it can get acknowledged. Any alarm state change at all, it'll pop the control center up on the screen. The other option is to only pop it up when there's a new alarm. So it's a new active alarm that's unacknowledged. It doesn't have to be acknowledged. It's just it doesn't have to be active. It's just new to Win911. As long as it's unacknowledged, it'll pop up on the screen. And we also added this option here for always on top. So it'll pop up. You can have Control Center appear over everything else on your screen. So if you have an HMI application that it also does an always on top kind of functionality where it's locked out to the operators, this can still pop up on top of that. And then when you close it, it will go back away to the taskbar. So those are the unique features to Win911 that we made. There are more smaller little tweaks that we made that you can read about in the release notes when you get a chance to take the new version for a spin. So check that out on our download page. And I just wanted to, if there are some questions about the licensing, this voice speech recognition thing, it's available in the perpetual and subscription licensing. So if you have a perpetual license already and you upgrade, you'll get those all the new voice features that I just talked about. But for all the features that we talked about with XLReporter and Win911, the integration and showing the reports on the mobile app, showing them in Control Center, all of that requires a subscription license and a majority of that requires the ultimate license tier, which is the old advanced tier. So we've renamed the tier. So ultimate is advanced, and pro is the old interactive license tier. So that's all I've got to show you guys. If we have any questions, I'll check it out here. See if we got any questions. All right. Oh, David, it looks like David answered this one before. I'll just read it out for you guys just in case someone else had the question. Uh, can you put a firewall between the XLReporter backend and HMI, SCADA, DCS, i.e. closer to the Purdue model? And David,
Yeah,
you
the answer
said,
to that is is yes, Revis. And so in Peter's response, I was talking about. I noticed his Emerson email there and was talking about some Delta V sources specifically. But essentially, if XLReporter is connecting to a remote data source, typically depending on the protocol, right, there'll be a port associated with that, whether it be SQL Server, OPC, or others. And so if that port is allowed through the firewall, XLReporter can access a data source through that firewall.
all right, cool. All right, thanks, David. Another question from Troy. Did you say that the multi-act enabled, the operator has to wait until all the alarms have been vocalized to acknowledge them all? You don't have to wait. If you don't wait, you're only going to acknowledge the alarms that you've heard. So let's say you have a list of 10, you have 10 alarms that it's calling you about, and you listen to 5 alarms and then you interrupt it. And you can only interrupt it when you're using the keypad. You can't interrupt with the speech recognition feature. Then you're only going to acknowledge those 5 alarms that you heard. If you wait till all 10 alarms are verbalized, then it will acknowledge all 10. But the change is that it doesn't ask you after every alarm, do you want to acknowledge this one? Do you want to acknowledge this one? Do you want to acknowledge this one? It gives you the option to change from that model to just reading them all out, and then you can acknowledge them all at the end to save yourself some time. And if you don't need to, I mean, if you're not going to take different actions on different alarms, then you probably want to use the new multi-act feature. So that is the answer to that one. Is there any free version available for Win911? We already have XLReporter 16. Can we integrate them for a trial? The trial of Win911, we have a 30-day trial, and that includes the subscription features. So if you had XLReporter and it's on the subscription too, because it requires a subscription for the integration pieces, then you can demo that. And if you don't have the subscription license for XLReporter, you can change it over. Or if you set up another system, I believe you can try. David, do you know if you can do a demo with XLReporter for the subscription features?
Yes,
Is
you
that
can,
included?
and I realize
All right.
we're kind of in a strange place in the weeds here in terms of, say, if somebody already has a perpetual license for
Yeah.
XLReporter and they want to try this. Long story short is, if you're interested in trying the Smart Bundle, we're happy to help you do that. Let us know, and we'll get you the right trial licensing to be able to do it.
We'll definitely get it sorted out for you to try it out. We definitely want you to take a look at it. All right. Are there any new backup redundancy features? For Win911, like I mentioned, there's a failover utility that now that came out with the last version. And what it will do is it looks to what we call the status module, and the status module shows the health of all the different Win911 modules. And it looks at both systems, and it can fail over from one Win911 system to the other automatically. So that came out with 2024, I believe. And there's also, we made a change to the backup utility. The backup utility, when you back up your primary system and you restore it to your secondary system, you can check a box so that it doesn't overwrite your gateway settings that are typically unique to your secondary system. We still don't have the automatic configuration between two pieces or two Win911 systems, and that may change in the future, but for now, we've just got the backup utility that will help you take care of it. And I don't think there were any redundancy changes or to XLReporter, were they, David?
No, no changes to the redundancy on the reporting side.
All right. All right. Does the Smart Sites reporting component have any limitations with which source control system it works with? Like the old reporting option built into Win91. So just to fill y'all, so the old reporting Win91 system, there were some sources it wouldn't work with, and it was really basic reporting features where it just give you the real-time values. Um, but for the new reporting component, whatever XLReporter supports for reports, then that can work with Win911 with all the
Yeah, and
different report drivers they've got. Yeah. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
yep, so we've got dedicated drivers in XLReporter for anything from Rockwell, GE, Emerson, Inductive, Siemens, Aviva, Trihedral, Kepware, OSI, HMS, and many, many others. And so you can find a full list of that on our site, smartsights.com. But essentially, anything that the reporting product supports in terms of a driver, you can then connect that report into the Win911 control center or the mobile app.
All right, great. Last one so far from Robert. Will be any integration with Active Directory for users and authentication? Right now, we don't have that targeted. It's something we get asked about quite a bit, and so we may take a closer look at something like that. I will say that the mobile app, the way the mobile app architecture works, it uses your um, Active Directory account, well, your online, your Office 365 accounts to log into the mobile app. So in a way, it kind of works there, but there's no way to sync contacts or something like that with Win911 or to control access to Win911 with Active Directory at the moment. But like I said, it's something we get asked about a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if we tackle that in the somewhat near future. I don't see any other questions, or don't see any that I missed.
I think we had a couple of replies to previous
Yeah,
answers, but I
yeah,
think I think we're caught up.
yep. All right. Well, I give you guys another 10 seconds to ask another question, and if we don't have another one, then I guess we'll break a little bit early and
By the way,
go the
Chris,
rest of
we'll
the
forgive you this time, but it's Smart Sights, SIGHTS.
game. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending the webinar. We are going to start doing some more webinar series that will be posted up on our website soon. So if you are interested in hearing more about Win91 and XLReporter, then keep an eye out for those things, and we'll keep sharing keep sharing things with you guys. So have a great day, and again, thank you very much for attending.